Of course, it didn't unmute itself, and we're rolling in. Going free, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone doing? It is exactly 4 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, and we are going to finish up with Hake and this T-junk, this anti-white junk that we had started with the other day. So this will be part 2. I don't think there'll be a part 3. We'll see. Please share the URL, of course, as we are appearing at an unusual time. Let me just move this over here. If you'd like to financially gift over the course of this stream, you can do so at Entropy, which is up and running at 15%. Odyssey up and running at 15%. To you, both of them. It appears to be up and running, I think. And yes, it is. And Cash App over to my right, your left. Great to see all of you. There's the great Fornola. Greetings, folks. Good to see you all. Rory is here. Rise of the Right. Jerome, Anglo-Saxon, Brad C. Wing It, the Highlander. Wonderful folks here. Somebody covered up by my pinned comment as well. Let me just make sure. Okay, we're doing here. All right, over here as well. Please let everyone know. Jennifer P is here. Let everyone know that Jennifer P is here. Let everyone know that we are having a roll in. We're going to have fun while we can. No White Guild is here. Or no W Guild is here. No White Guild Clips also. So Clips is here. Great to see you, brother. And there is Carlisle. How are you, young lady? Wow, that shirt and tie is amazing. Y'all, well, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. And we hope that you are feeling better today. Franklin is here. Great to see you. Did we have fun? Did we have fun with anti-white junk last time? I think Hake was doing a damn good job tearing him up, even though Hake was being very friendly because he was just interviewing the guy. But nonetheless, we're going to address this and address some of your comments. In fact, let me just start with a couple of your comments that, folks, if you're new here, we receive tons and tons of comments, testimonials. We try to share them as often as possible. And answer any questions that are contained therein. So we'll start with a couple of these, and then we're going to get into T-Junk and Hake, the review of their sort of debate-ish interview that he had there. Synth says here, I'll say it again, Jason, you should consider running for office, and you could deal with these anti-whites directly, starting with the anti-whites in the Biden administration and Mr. S, among others. Well, I'll tell you what. If I were put into office, I would definitely, and that's a possibility for the foreseeable future, running for office. But if I were to get into office, especially if I were in a position to really go after folks like these anti-white criminals, I would not be a friend or friendly like Donald Trump was, and all of the other Republicans, really. They're all just friendly with the anti-whites, no matter what they call themselves. I would put them all in jail. There would be, if possible, I would go to the extremes with the anti-whites, just as they have done with the white race for a very long time. Thank you for that, Seth. We also have Dino Storm, and in just a moment, we will be beginning with T-Junk and Hake, and we will be reviewing that. We were there, and so I will go ahead and bring it up right now in part 1, having quite a bit of fun. Because it was, this guy calls himself a classical liberal. And in my experience, everyone calling themselves a classical liberal who isn't arguing from a more sort of a patriotic stance. Everyone's claiming that title is anti-white. And of course, he confirmed that right away. Let's see. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. So we'll put that up on the screen so folks know. Please share the URL, and we'll jump up here to Dino Storm, who says, we are 1,000 years ahead of ant-nats/cult nats. And then a muscle emoji. The ant-nats are like the Polish. They hate Russia more than they love Poland. If we are to win, we must be adept. Or I guess we must adapt is what he wants to say there. Maybe I'm just misreading, and that's probably my fault. He says, read Go Free. I've spent a lot of my time thinking about what a white positive film looks like. It's an interesting thought path, and I think I'm close to figuring it out. Something that's positive us, but not negative some other group. Just a matter of making them now. If only I had time and funding. Well, that's one of the things we absolutely do have to get funding for. We will jump down to Lovely Porridge. He says a bit of constructive criticism, which others might not agree with, but I find it mentally exhausting to hear rebuttal after every few seconds of the clip. It makes me subconsciously sympathetic to the anti-white because I never get to hear their full formed thought. I know you have to stop it because they pack about 3 MPs into each sentence, but my brain just can't digest more than 10 minutes of it. But it might just be me because others seem to be enjoying this format. Well, thank you very much for that, Porridge. And I did take it to heart. I always am looking to improve, and I will experiment. I think folks, everyone who knows, who gives me any sort of constructive criticism can vouch for the fact that I take it to heart, and I employ it, and maybe I'm not seeing something. And so I've actually did that. I put Lovely Porridge's recommendation into effect in part 1 here, and we will continue with it here in part 2. And then we will come back to a couple of these before we wrap up at the top of the hour. So let's go, shall we? No W Guild says classical liberal equals anti-white. Yeah, it sure does.
And so if the goal of the Democratic Party was to redistribute power and wealth, letting in immigrants does not in any way help them to do that. All it does is give them more political power so they can reestablish their already considerable white power wealth.
Okay, so I didn't go back any, but the point that TJump or anti-white junk is making here is, as he sits in his, I get the feeling that he's like this horrible hoarder, and this is the only place in his house where you don't see like stacks and stacks of, oh, what do you think? You all might give out your guesses for what you think the different things he collects, like Pampers from other people's trash cans. What do you think he collects in the house? And if there's any issue with the sound or it sounds great, let me know. The feedback would be good. What TJump is saying here is that any white people having wealth, and he specifically refers to white billionaires. Of course, we know there are plenty of non-white billionaires. In fact, there are people who happen to be not white who are part of the money printing process. That may be true, in my opinion. It may be true. But ask a historian of the anti-white flavor. I'm sure they would tell you something different. And so he refers solely to white billionaires. And if white billionaires get wealthy or stay wealthy, or if they have any money, or if anything benefits them, then that means that you, the ordinary white person, maybe you're a waitress, maybe you're one of these white women that were tricked into being anti-white, and you took the title feminist, or at least a bunch of the poisonous ideas on, and you headed off into the office, and now you're making somebody else rich. You don't have a family, or your family doesn't care about you because you're gone all the time serving some other men while they sit out on their yachts. And TJump, all of these anti-whites out there, the ideology that you adopted, he believes that if white people have money, any white people out there have money, then you are empowered by it. Then you are bettered by it. You have some sort of cultural muscle that you are flexing on the rest of the country. And therefore, you need to be victimized. Therefore, you need less power. You need less money. You need fewer things.
You say it, white power wealth. But
look at Hake laughing at that. That's great.
I mean, it sounds like you're basically
yes. Clips says TJump collects lazy boys. Fit and healthy at any age is here. Great to see you. Cat decoration, says Pearl Lady. I don't doubt it. Fornell says old Sunset magazines. He collects gum from the bottom of tables. Probably. I could see that happening. If you come up, vanilla ice hair. Yeah, that's what he had. Yeah, imagine that. Imagine that he goes for, it wasn't Vanilla Ice part Jewish. I could be wrong. But go figure that this anti-white, lazy boy loving character here is putting on the vanilla ice stew.
Agreeing with me.
It's more like, what is it? What did he say? Ice, ice, baby. What does this guy say? Hate white baby?
Me. But you're just saying that it's an attack on the normal conservative whites, let's say, on the decent ones.
So I would make a distinction between trying to damage white culture and trying to attack conservative culture. I think those are two different things. So like Western culture as a whole, like I'm a liberal, so I'm classical liberal, center left, and that's also white culture. It's always been white culture. It's this from the Greeks on, and so the Democratic Party isn't essentially
anti-whiteism. His title that he's claiming, a political bent or sociological bent, sociopolitical viewpoint, is what he's referring to is white. White people created it, and it's a beautiful little counterbalance in our other ideologies and views, perspectives that we have created over time. But what he's done is he's masquerading as that when he's really an anti-white. So what he's doing is he's saying that anti-whiteism is Western culture. Can you imagine that? Destroying Western culture, victimizing Western kind is white culture. So as long as anti-white junk, and other anti-whites out there are victimizing white people and destroying Western civilization and making spurious, sophistical arguments to tear down Western civilization, everything that white people reject, as long as we're doing that, then there is Western civilization. Amazing.
Trying to redistribute power to non-white culture. They definitely don't like conservative culture, but they're to redistribute from the Greeks on. And so the Democratic Party isn't essentially trying to redistribute power to non-white culture. They definitely
that's exactly what's happening. He can make the claim that the Democrats are not intentionally doing that, but in a democracy, inescapably, if you have bringing people in of another race, etc., they have a voting pattern. They vote what they want. They vote their instinct. They vote what they like. They vote what they created, where they came from. That ineluctably takes power away from white people in those places that these new peoples move. I mean, it's just it's very simple mathematics. If you have, we can break this down for look at it. Look at his lying face there. I bet you he definitely is jamming to Vanilla Ice at nighttime. He just rocks it. House just is lit with like speakers from the 80s, you know, like those like giant woofers, and he's listening to Ice Ice Baby. Or was that 90s? I guess that was 90s. But if you have, break it down nice and simple. If you have two white people who are voters, and you could say it's a club, and then you bring in three non-white people, and they have a voting pattern, they can be expected to vote reliably in a specific direction. When they show up, they outvote you. They outvote the white people. And so it ineluctably takes power away from the two white people that were there. Not only that, but when people who are not citizens or sort of citizens, or they just showed up or whatever it is, or they don't have the right to vote and they do vote, or they're dead and they vote, or whatever it might be, whatever these are claims that are made, they are denying you your ability to vote because they have canceled your vote. That's the ultimate destruction of power and elimination of power.
Definitely don't like conservative culture, but they're not trying to take away white culture.
Okay. Interesting.
Look at Hake.
I have some super chats to read, and you guys,
Hake's like, I can tell you're lying your ass off.
From the people.
Sure.
I have some super chats to read. You guys can call in 888-775-3773.
You can't call in right now. I'm reviewing what this, so don't mix this up.
Uncle Ted 88 says anti-discrimination laws are anti-white on their face, But my economy.
Okay, well, this guy's getting it right.
You follow
This
what
guy
his point is there?
super chatting.
Not exactly. So
I
if I say
don't understand what he's saying. You worship economy. That's what he's saying. It's obvious. And it doesn't matter what happens to the lives of white people.
want to have, like, in the way that affirmative action in that case would be, I think, fitting his comments. But when we're talking about anti-discrimination laws, we're not talking about affirmative action, because affirmative action is discriminatory. But
he's right there.
Anti-discrimination laws are just saying that you must allow people of other races to.
No one is. It's totally illegal to say that we're not going to hire people of a certain race here. That's not what's happening. So this is that like bait and switch thing that anti-whites do. They'll start off by saying these companies have to allow non-white people and women to apply and to have a shot at a job here, have a shot at a promotion, and then they get a bunch of people, just like they did with women in the military. What if there is a woman out there? This was how they made their arguments, and then mostly not men, mostly women fell for this. Not all, but mostly women fell for this. What if there's a woman out there and she does have the physical ability that a man does? What if she trains really hard and she has the exact same physical ability and the exact same mental endurance and quick thinking on her feet? What if that's the case? Are you going to hurt her feelings and prevent her from participating? I mean, all that work that she does to get there, and you're going to hurt her feelings? She's going to go home and cry. She's going to go home and she's going to throw her face in her pillow and just cry. And then all of these women, and then the henpecked men, white men, who are just absolutely gutless and dickless, immediately submit. Oh, yes, you're right. I don't want her to go home and cry. Please, are you going to stop bitching and throwing a tantrum in the house if I just also agree with you? And so we can do whatever you want. Okay, then fine. I don't want her to go home and cry. So let's go ahead and endorse this. Get these women who are able to do everything the men can do there. Let's get them into these positions. Let's open the door to them. And the moment the door was open, just like at these companies, the moment the door is open, they say, you can't expect women to do the same stuff that men can. You can't expect them to have to get out there and have the same upper body strength and have the same, but you're going to pay them the same. Oh, you can't pay them $1 less, even if they're doing less. Right? So that's how the argument, it's not the camel's nose under the tent. It is the anti-whites RPG missile launcher under the lip of the tent. And that's essentially what's happening when you heed their arguments, these meme pathogens. So now these companies, it's not just as anti-white junk here would say. And somebody, I'm repeating that. Somebody wrote that in the thread. I thought it was brilliant. I can't remember who it was, but you can look back to the old video or the first video. And he's making this argument of, well, you got to let them, you can't have some sort of prohibition. And then as soon as everybody says, yeah, well, of course we don't have a prohibition on it. Companies obviously don't, because companies have to compete, and the wealth of the greedy, avaricious assholes at the top is dependent on their people doing better than their competitors, or the competitors who could take the place of their product or service, even if it's not identical. What's that called again in economics? And so they're going to go with the best no matter what, which, by the way, these anti-whites, they always do this thing where they talk about, well, like women were finally allowed in, and then or non-whites were finally allowed in. And then you actually look back further in history and you find, oh, wait a second, this really competent woman or this really competent non-white was brought in and kicked ass. So actually it wasn't a matter. It was that these businesses and these governments, et cetera, they were bringing people in that could do the job and that excelled. But once they have the scenario, they then say, oh, you have to have them there. You must have them there. You must have so many there. And then they start off with the argument of it must be similar to their percentage in the population. And then once they get there, they say, oh, no, it's not enough representation at this company. It's not enough representation at this level of pay grade or that level of pay grade. No, you need more at this company. This is how they work. Go for it, TJump.
Work in your business or to shop in your business, and so they must have equal levels of rights or opportunity. But I would agree that like affirmative action is going too far, and that would be discriminatory.
This would be the best part for Hake to come in. I know he's interviewing and being kind, but to come in there and just say what I just said, right?
Part of the problem is, I think that since you're an atheist, you're a little bit more loosey-goosey on like morality, if you will. I know that you believe in an absolute morality, even though you aren't an atheist. But I don't know. I've seen the country on like a major moral decline, but since we're maybe thriving on some level, you're fine with it. Thriving, you know, financially, seemingly, at least for a while, on some level.
I'm not sure what you mean there. So when you say loosey-goosey on morality, my view of morality is, you're right, I believe in objective morality. I'm a moral realist, like most philosophers who are also...
Okay, so he's a philosopher, except he's calling it morality when it's ethics.
So mostly atheists. And the standard of morality is essentially well-being for humanity. So morality is...
No, that's not... We'll just let him talk.
Best possible moral world you could ever achieve is one where it's physically impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing. And so if we're moving closer to a world where it's harder and harder to force people to do things they don't consent to doing, we're becoming better. We have moral progress in society, which is the pattern we've seen throughout pretty much all of humanity, that there's this moral...
Okay, so his only basis here is that nobody has to be forced to do anything. Right. So should white people be forced to participate in anti-whiteism?
Progress. We get better as society goes on. And so I don't know what you mean when you see a moral decline. It seems like we're morally improving based on...
My God, you really can take this. I mean, think of the guy, Stefan Molyneux, had this universally preferable behavior. Is that what he called it? UPB? Something like that. So is it universally preferable if you are non-white to get a job based on your race? Is that universally preferable? Would you want that if it held true for somebody else? Obviously not. And that seems to be what this guy's attempting to articulate.
Off of pretty much every analytic moral standard we have.
The country is seemingly like as divided. Well, I don't know about what the Civil War was like because I wasn't around back then, but the country is really divided right now. And it has been so for probably more than 20 years, certainly around the time. I noticed it when I started paying more attention to politics, when I started voting and stuff. With George W. Bush's election, you saw how...
Yeah, could you seriously imagine? I mean, Brad C says it here. Morally improving in our societies, FFS. Yes. It could not be more immoral. The entire family is breaking down, almost non-existent. And the kinds of things that you can find children now being exposed to because of anti-whiteism, the kind of behavior that people are engaging in because of anti-whiteism, the kind of self-harm for white people because of anti-whiteism, the wild drug use. I mean, are you forcing people to not be drug addicts that run themselves into the ground and destroy their lives? Because would that be a breach with this guy's morality when really he means ethics? Crazed. It is crazed to look at today's society, today's Western civilization, and say that we are more moral or more ethical than we used to be. That is so perfectly insane. And it could only be said by somebody who willingly straps their ass to a lazy, oh my God, that's that guy.
How close that election was. And it's been divided in kind of for the worse, in my opinion, notwithstanding the economic benefit that we've gotten from like the information.
Fit and healthy at any age. And there hasn't been an economic benefit. I think Hake is ceding that to this guy to be friendly, you know. Fit and healthy at any age, pointing out divorce. And look at how many lives, almost entirely the lives of men. And of course, what we're concerned with, the only men that nobody cares about, and that's white men, white young men, middle-aged men, old men, whole lives destroyed, children just absolutely yanked from them, never to see them again. On these surveys, women talking about that where they don't have to identify who they actually are. They say it's some staggering percent. It was unbelievable in these surveys. They did one of those meta tests or meta surveys of surveys, and it was crazy. It was like 80s percentage that they said, yep, lied my ass off to prevent my husband from seeing the kids, to get everything I could out of him, my ex-husband. That's my opinion, of course, as CNN. But this guy loves that. That's why he thinks it's so. When he says, I mean, really think about this. When he says, you know, by every index, things are better. He's talking about anti-white people being delighted with what's happening to Western civilization. He doesn't care what's happening to you as a white person. He doesn't care what happened to your life. He doesn't care that all of those companies that were making sure they were hiring women and non-whites overlooked you again and again and again until you so hated your existence. You drowned yourself in drink or drugs, and you found some miserable shit little job. You made a bunch of decisions that have ruined your life even further because of anti-whiteism. This lazy boy sitting piece of shit doesn't care that happened to you. What he cares about is that these big companies that hand out the big salaries and the government handing out the big salaries paid for with your tax dollars, that they're saying every quarter of the year, we have further raped white people and culled them out of our business and government bureaucracy. And then given those jobs and those promotions and et cetera to people on the basis of their race, non-white people. You really can build up, at least I can. I think healthy people, heroes, can really build up a real disgust for somebody like this. What he's talking about is the level of comfort, the level of ease that we created for ourselves with our intelligence. The best among us, the most creative, the most industrious among us have created, and we're still living in the arc of this echo of this wonderful period of creation and invention across Western civilization. And if we're to be really honest, primarily the US, the UK, and Germany. All right, the white people from those places. And we're still living in the echo of this. And this fat is sitting there in a lazy boy, which I'm thinking about wasn't invented in Nicaragua. You know, you can't find that. Like in Cambodia, they didn't like roll these babies out and say, well, look at this. No, it was a bunch of white people who figured that shit out, and he squat his ass in it, just wondering, when is the next white guy going to figure out how to turn this into a toilet so I don't have to keep wearing these Huggies in it?
Age and stuff like that.
What do you mean? So, like, I don't see a problem with differing opinions. Having people who disagree, I think, is totally fine. So I don't see that as a moral decline that we disagree on things.
Well, I mean, you're for the LGBT agenda on the whole, right? You're for the same-sex marriage thing. You're
Yes.
for the transgenders, at least the adults, being allowed to do whatever they do and make the rest of us go along with it.
I don't know what that means. I don't
like we have to.
So I wouldn't be for like forcing people to use pronouns. Like, I'm against that.
Yeah.
So
that's nice.
transgender bathrooms, I think that we should just have.
He's like, I'm going to try to have some level of legitimacy, as though he's going to fool anybody. I mean, he probably will fool some dickless men and some females, but he's not going to fool the rest of us. The white people who pass through this bottleneck, we're going to be a lot sharper and a lot less trusting than the ones who, I'm afraid, don't make it.
Have like a third kind of a bathroom or something. Like, I wouldn't want to force anyone to adopt that policy. I think it should be up to the individual companies whether they do that or not.
What
their policy is. A third kind of a bathroom. With bathrooms, I think that that.
Yeah,
So
that's nice.
Transgender bathrooms, I think that we should just have like a third kind of a bathroom or something. Like I wouldn't want to force anyone to adopt that policy. I think it should be up to the individual companies whether they do that or not, what their policy is. So I mean, my only advocacy is that trans people should be treated exactly the same as everybody else.
You wanted freedom for people, not forcing people to do stuff, but there's a lot of business owners who
He says that every night as he, looks in the mirror and applies his lipstick.
who, if they had their druthers, they would be discriminating. They would be serving some and not others.
Sure. And I think that if we were in a world where there's infinite resources, that wouldn't be a problem. So I think
Let's back it up to Hake.
If they had their druthers, they would do stuff, but there's a lot of business owners who, if they had their druthers, they would be discriminating. They would be serving some and not others.
Sure. And I think that if we were in a world where there's infinite resources, that wouldn't be a problem. So if we had infinite resources, we could supply everyone with everything they needed. And
before he goes any further, I just want to jump in on that thought. What does anti-white junk, what does he think, I wonder, about the censorship and the absolute shadow banning like that we undergo because we're not anti-white? Certainly, therefore, not anti-white enough. We're not anti-white at all. I mean, if these folks have to, what did we say? These businesses shouldn't be forced, but they should, consider creating a third kind of bathroom.
Sure, you could discriminate against whoever you want, but because there's a limited amount of resources and we want to try to grow the economy as much as possible, then we want...
Okay. Subservience to the economy again. I'll back it up. We'll hear the whole thing that he has to say. But this idea that if there is limitless resources, which there will never be, the only thing that's limitless, he worships the economy. He doesn't quite understand economics. But the only thing that's limitless is human desire. But that is a erroneous argument to make about whether or not you can discriminate against someone, whether or not you could keep out something or someone or some group from what you create. That's a completely different sphere of whether or not there are enough resources. What he's done here is he's set up an argument that you can't win because there will never be limitless resources. So therefore, you have to turn your resources over to whomever wants them.
You want to have everyone have as much opportunity to get the resources they can in the most efficient way possible so that they can continue to thrive and grow the economy. And so the reason we have anti-discrimination laws, even though I think all laws are immoral to some degree because they're forcing you to do something you don't consent to doing, they're pragmatic in that we...
Murder? You shouldn't murder? What the hell's on this guy's mind? That you shouldn't rape children? What's on this guy's mind?
Need laws to encourage things that benefit the lives of everyone, to help grow the economy, to help build the quality of life. And so if there's something we can stop people from doing that will cause harm to others, then it's a good thing to have a law to do that, like stoplights. It's a good thing to stop people from speeding all the time because it saves lives. And so if anti-discrimination laws can provide more opportunity to minority groups to be able to gain access to resources more efficiently, like to a shop that's more nearby or whatever, or cheaper, or who knows what, then that will allow them to have access to resources which they can then use to grow faster and benefit the economy more and do all kinds of things. And so it's a good thing to have those laws pragmatic.
This guy just said that there aren't limitless resources. There aren't limitless jobs at the company. There aren't limitless seats at the university. He knows this very well, which means if you bring other people in, if you require a company to hire people based on race or sex, and they don't have limitless seats, they don't have limitless jobs, then what do you have to do with a certain other group? We know what that other group is. It's white people and primarily white males. They need to not be selected. They need to be rejected, a diversity rejection or diversity fire. And that means you never hired, or you don't get the promotion, or you're actually fired from the job. So by this guy's very own argument, he just demonstrated his anti-whiteism. As long as you, and when he says minorities, he means non-white people. He's not talking about, like, if you go to Detroit, he's not white people numerically inferior, and you could go across the West now and find many places where there are fewer white people than non-white people. He's not talking about those minorities. No, he's talking about non-white people, which is why we don't use the anti-white concept minority.
Radically, even though in a best of all possible worlds, we shouldn't have any kind of laws forcing anyone to do anything.
You mentioned
the best kind of world, no laws. Wow.
Women working, and I have a super chat about that from Asmodor over here. He says the quote unquote economic benefit of doubling the worker pool by allowing women in benefits corporations, not people/families, to claim studies show people are doing better now than in decades past is retarded on its face. I don't know if you followed. I didn't quite follow it.
So I think the super chatter is saying what we said in part one, that this is a perfect place for this to be paused to, because that TJump, his eyes are closed to, but they're actually not. I mean, that would be sort of a conservative take, and I'm not going to have a conservative take on it. I like conservative people, but conservative content creators are imbeciles. But yeah, the claiming that bringing women into the workforce has improved the family, improved our lives is absolute bullshit. Pardon the French. Or that, I mean, like I said, everyone knows now you're in a relationship, both of you have to work. That was not the way it used to be.
What he said there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So there's a lot of research on women in the workforce, and we can compare economies.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let me reread it with at least my comprehension. The economic benefit of doubling the worker pool by allowing women in, it benefits corporations, but it doesn't benefit people and families.
Yeah, that seems to make sense as an interpretation, but it seems false. So, like, if we can literally look at the economies of.
What do you mean? I'll let him talk in a moment. Porridge, I can hear him in my head, but this claim that it's not going to benefit the company is absurd on its face. It's just prima facie. You double the workforce, you have the salaries. And once again, if a company could have outstripped another company and then taken all of their profits away and all of the other companies by having nothing but a bunch of women at the top of the company, or nothing but a bunch of women and non-whites at the top, or nothing but a bunch of non-white people at the top, they would have done it. The white owners at the top of that company, in TJump's mind, they're all white owners. They would have done whatever it took to have bigger yachts, faster yachts, more homes. Give me a break.
Countries before and after they allowed women in the workforce. And we can literally see the economic growth, the quality of life, the technological growth, the intellectual growth on every measurable metric that matters to anybody. Once again, what he's talking about, just go back to the fact that we are still living off of this great arc from all this period of inventiveness and creativity, etc., in the West, and we'll be living off of it for some time, which is why I've always argued with folks in the white sympathetic sphere that stop imagining there's going to be like this sudden stoppage of all of these things everywhere. But he's saying, you know what I'm willing to bet, since he's talking about all that really matters is all of these these kitschy things, these widgets that we now have, new widgets all the time. You don't need a new phone every year or 2 years or something, but TJump sees that as something that has just revolutionized and made our lives infinitely better. You know what I bet this little anti-white doesn't have much of a family.
And so therefore, all these little kitschy knick-knack widget things are his family. I bet his pet. Do you remember that pet, that thing what was it, like a little rock looking thing, or what was it? And it had a little screen on. There was like a dog inside. It was like a digital dog, and it came from, those things were junk from Japan. I bet you that was his only pet.
It's better in the societies that allowed women in the workforce to those that didn't. Now, forcing women in the workforce, that would be bad. I wouldn't approve of slavery. So women can choose to still be stay-at-home moms. That's fine. But giving them the option to choose to go to school or go to work or whatever does benefit
women, white in the West. Now, he can go complain in non-white countries. In the West, women have entered education and have jobs, and you can look back and see the great accomplishments of white women long before anti-whiteism was destroying Western civilization. The difference was the women that were in those places deserved to be there. They weren't there because of their naughty bits. All right.
Everyone significantly by like an almost immeasurable amount. It's massive. The difference between like Saudi Arabia, where women are still barely able to work or barely able to just allowed to drive like a couple of years ago.
Yes, talk more about
difference between
Saudi Arabia
societies and America.
Watch your channel get deleted.
Obvious. It's huge. It's huge. Like they're not happier in those countries than we are in ours.
You know,
they're not look at, he's got this little swing. By what metric? Who's conducting these studies that say women are happier? What horseshit? You talk to women today. You talk to a woman who's in her 30s, in her 40s. She's built no family. She is carrying several STDs around now for the rest of her life. She has bacteria inside of her from like 43 men. Ask her how happy she is. She's making sure that the bosses at work are having a hell of a vacation several times a year. Ask her how happy she is.
You mentioned a couple of different things. What do you mean by intellectual growth? You said we got intellectual growth by women in the workplace.
Yes, women have brains and they can learn and discover things and make scientific progress.
They have brains? Not all of them. Come on, TJump. And not all guys either, because I'm looking at one. And Hake is the one who has the brain, so it'll make it real easy for TJump to figure this one out. At least I hope. He's struggling.
All kinds of shit, make discoveries. And so if we have 50% of the scientific
women in the workplace.
Yes, women have brains and they can learn and discover things and make scientific progress and do all kinds of shit, make discoveries. And so if we have 50% of the population who are not being as allowed the same level of access to scientific research.
That doesn't logically follow. It doesn't logically follow that you automatically have discovery, invention, etc., because you allow just a flat number of more brains, not more brains as in a higher IQ number, but more brains to participate. Just think of it, just doesn't follow logic whatsoever. Imagine if you had let's not say people, but I don't know, maybe you could say on another planet, people on another planet, non-human people, humanoid people. And let's say they had an IQ of 50 on average. And you have their best, who are maybe up around 60, 65, working on the problems that they face in their little shitty civilization or whatever you want to call it. And they allow more of the 50s to participate. Is that going to increase the number? And why is it more 50s? Because you're taking more of the average and bringing them into that so-called productive place. You bring them into this. Does that make that environment more intelligent? Does that mean there are going to be more discoveries because you have more 50 IQ level humanoids involved on another planet? No, in fact, you will probably undermine the ones who would have been more productive had they not had to deal with the stupidity of the average of their, the bell curve of these humanoid people on another planet. Does that make sense? I mean, you can't, this guy can't even, how is he passed off? Once again, once again, I got to say this. In 15 minutes, I'm going to take a quick look at your comments soon, see if there are any financial gifts, and maybe read a couple more here, and then we'll be getting out of here. We'll watch a little bit more of this. But I have to say this here, because it struck me the other night as well. I was thinking about this, that everyone, that a broad group of people, now remember, the bigger the group of people, the more you're lowering the IQ to what the average is for that group, okay? So the bigger the group of people that say that someone is smart or that someone is really intelligent is not a confirmation that that person is intelligent, because that bigger group composed of more of the average intellects are going to view intelligent as just a little bit more than them, or maybe even in most cases not even more intelligent than they are, but just knowing things that they believe intelligent people know, right? You have like this huge illusion with Americans who look at some certain groups in the UK and the words that they use in certain, for example, like dreamt rather than dreamed, as is used here in the United States. And they believe that they are seeing higher education because that is the way they would have learned how to say dreamed had they stayed in education longer. That's a real phenomenon. It's called irregular verbs, all right? So the bigger the group of people that say that someone is really bright is not a confirmation that the person is really bright. The person might just be another midwit that knows the things that the basic midwits believe that intelligent people know. This is a big problem with democracy. So many of the people that say that democracy is garbage will happily embrace a couple of things here. They'll embrace the notion of who's really bright. Think of content creators right now who have massive audiences who say they're really smart. The bigger the audience, the lower the IQ, and the closer it gets to midwittery. And the closer it gets to midwittery, you're not getting an assessment of higher intelligence. You're getting the assessment of midwit intelligence. Think about that for a second. I know you can rattle off a handful of them, of content creators that people say, genius, this is genius. Now, if you have a smaller group of people who are above average, and they are saying that someone is more intelligent than the average, then their assessment is more likely to yield somebody who is actually more intelligent than average because they are more intelligent than average. Got it? Here's how this gets really scary for white well-being. Here's how this gets really scary for us in service to white well-being, white sympathy, and white positivity. Democratic mechanisms, democratic machinery, by way of popularity, what people are choosing to watch and give money to, are determining who our leaders are in the white sympathetic and white positive sphere. Think about that for a moment. The biggest groups of people, ergo, the lower the IQ, not only the question of IQ to midwittery range, not only the lower the IQ, but also as a measurement of the industriousness, the tenacity, the ferocity necessary. All of these things that when you take as a whole, you have a population, you say, what is the average, the midwit, the bell curve average for aggressiveness for this people? And is that aggressiveness going to be enough to win back our destiny? It's not. It is simply not. Is that intelligence, that midwit determined intelligence, going to be enough to win back our destiny? It is not. So we have a democratic mechanism that is determining who our bright people are and who our courageous people are in the white sympathetic sphere. Those will be the leaders you get. In other words, the leaders that people are comfortable with, they don't feel like they are inferior to. They don't feel like a comparison between themselves, and that leader is going to find them wanting on many levels. That is what you get for your leadership. All right, Mike is cutting in and out. Thank you for that. Is everybody having a problem with the mic? We'll get back to this so that we can get a little bit more in before I wrap it up.
To working in jobs where they can make technological progress, then half of the population are not making discoveries and innovations that they could be. So women discover shit and invent shit too.
Keep it clean, just for my...
Oh, my apologies.
No problem. Thanks. But okay, I get your point. But women kind of, they get this affirmative action in right now, which I know you're not for affirmative action. And they also breed like this division and resentment in the workplace, and they kind of hamper things and slow things down. I think that they were the reason, my suspicion, this is one of my suspicions, that they were behind the shutdowns, the overreaction to the virus that we just went through the past couple of years, because they can't really handle stress, and they pass that stress on to the media, and the media passes that stress on to the people and fear mongers about the virus and says, we need to shut stuff down. And in my opinion, we did not need to shut down to the level that we did, and that hampered.
Thank you for that. Franklin says, good rant. Even though it was cutting out, and is it cutting out right now? Even though it was cutting maybe in and out and not sounding so great. Okay, so I was audible, but the audio just wasn't that great. All right. Bottom line is, as we get closer to the end here, I'm going to take a look at financial gifts. And I love you all who financially gift. The bottom line is, the issue for us in service to white well-being, whether you're white sympathetic or white positive as we are, is that we have the broad average, the mid-wit IQ, the mid courage, if you want to call it that, mid-couraged person determining who our leader is going to be. And that person, those people that are put forward by is popular demand, how many people are showing up to their shows, how many people give them money, the outcome for that, whether you think I'm making, you just assess my argument. You just assess my argument for whether or not it's legitimate or not. The bottom line is this democratic mechanism is determining who our most popular folks are, and therefore who are the thought leaders and who are the organizational and leaders, and who will be the leaders of our people. That has, across Western civilization throughout history, that is never how we determined who our great leaders would be. We would have never had an Andrew Jackson in the United States, for example, if our leaders the individuals who were going to be put forward to recapture the United States from bankers, and that's what Andrew Jackson did, what he's known for, at least in my opinion, he would have never been selected. That population would have adopted, they would have, by popular demand, if that would have been how it worked, you would have gotten the middest of the midwits instead of the brilliant Andrew Jackson, because people would be intimidated by Andrew Jackson's intelligence. They would simply be intimidated. And a lot of the men would have been intimidated by his masculinity. And a lot of the women certainly would have been intimidated by his masculinity. They would have said, oh, we need somebody who's, can get along a little better, can make deals a little better, this country would be far further down the road to perdition, far further. But instead, you still had a different system in the United States at that time. The voting process was still running on the echo of its creation. So you still had a situation where people were put in front of you, and there were some good people like Andrew Jackson. Nowadays, there's no good people. right? The people that are put up in front of you to decide for, these are all, they have hands up their asses and they're doing the work of other people. These folks who were put up in front of you back then, there were still some good folks there. Andrew Jackson was one of them. But if there was no way for him to be put forward, if he lived today, if he had to gain his popularity and the money behind him by how many people, this democratic mechanism of, do I like him? Do I feel threatened by him? Do I feel like I can kind of push him around? You notice the kind of folk, if that would have been there, by the way, I'll just finish that thought. If that would have been in place, you would have never known Andrew Jackson existed. You'd have never known. Guys would be, the vast majority of guys, this is the reality, midwit guys would be out all circling around, celebrating some guy that was shorter than them, thinner than them, uglier than them, less adept with women than them, marred by weird things in their history, so that they always had to carry around, right, this mark of or burden of shame in their life or whatever it was. That would be what people would be drawn to. Same reason why people show up in the tens and tens of millions on YouTube and on television every single night to watch people whose lives are shit, because they don't feel intimidated by them. They feel like, I'm better than them, at least. We have to find a way to overcome this democratic mechanism in the white sympathetic sphere. You have so many of these people who talk about democracy is failed, it's a joke, it's garbage, and then they wildly enjoy the popularity of midwit and mid-couraged selection from the folks who populate the white sympathetic sphere. And if you all have an idea on how to do that, let me know. I mean, to some degree, the argument is there, but how do you get from here to there? To some degree, the argument is there that what is best for all these folks is something that they could never understand or see or not fear or not feel intimidated by or not feel worse than, or not, on and on. And we've come to this place where, because of democracy, because of this democratic ideas and mechanism, everybody thinks everybody's ideas, everybody's opinion is as good as anybody else's. Well, it's fucking not. That's the reality. It's not. Look at anti-white junk here. Look at how dumb he is. Everybody's in fact, the opinion of the broadest number of people is fucking stupid, and what they select is stupid. That can't be your leader. That can't be the person that the white race puts forward to rescue us. And I think that at bottom, the anti-whites know this. That's like their Trump card, and has nothing to do with Donald Trump. That's their Trump card, because they know that the average white intelligence and the average white level of courage is never going to select the kind of man and men that the white race needs to recapture our destiny. It's always going to select scrawny, bitchy people with these horrible pasts that stalk them like demons in the night. It's always going to be people like that. People with characters that are broken and flawed. You know, a lot of people like Richard Spencer, I don't think I've talked about this very much before, because they knew that morally he was a reprobate. And they thought, well, he might be good looking, he might be born to a rich family and a trust fund baby, but he is articulate and I'm better than him morally, so I'm going to go ahead and support him. And it goes on and on, on and on. Just these, do you have stigmata? Do you have these like horrible things in your life and in your past, or something you're currently suffering with? Are you made miserable by that? So I can see myself as better than you? So I select you. Christ almighty. All right. Well, I don't know if we've seen enough of this or not. I don't think there'll be a part 3. Let me quickly look here. We have, I'll just look here. We have the great Mrs. Jess Horst. God bless you, sweet sister, over here on Entropy. Financially gifting $20 US. And for that, my dear, you get a salute. Please, everybody, 07s for Mrs. Jess Horst, and raucous emojis for this wonderful woman. She's got 9. She supports 9 children, and she financially gifts. If you are not supporting 9 children and you're not finding a way to participate, whether it's financial gifting or your time or your talents or whatever it might be, then you should feel ashamed of yourself. She writes here, go free with all of you great folks. Hail, Western kind. And 3 beautiful little white heart emojis. God bless you, sister. I really appreciate that. You're a real champ. I'm going to pull this down. Thank you all for letting me know about the microphone. I've got to keep a sharper eye for when this thing might be malfunctioning. Making a good argument. And isn't it weird how it just always goes bad? I mean, it's not like I'm ever making many bad arguments, but still. All right. Look, we got another champion here. It's always on the shoulders. It's always on the shoulders of the real doers out there. A lot of people would like to come up and take credit, but there's a, was it Pareto, a certain number of folks that do all the work. And here you have No White Gill Clips coming in with a $10 financial gift. God bless you, brother. He says, brilliant analysis as always. Thank you so much. Take a quick look at Odyssey is blank. And so we're going to be getting out of here. Let me scroll back. If I missed your comment in the future, you'll have to make sure you tag me, drop it in entropy question widget, which is the Tall Kevin widget, or post it again a little bit later. But it looks like we didn't have many people here today, so I probably have your comments still. Just scrolling. Great to see everybody. No W Guilt says classic liberal equals anti-white. Yes, indeed. No White Gill Clips says TJump collects La Lazy Boy. That's right, La Lazy Boys. Pearl Lady says TJump knows what he's saying is false, but he's just being disingenuous. Precisely, good lady. Precisely. Very well seen. See, the best ladies come here. Todd is here. Archangel is here. Fit and Healthy at Any Age says, have you seen the documentary called The Red Pill? I haven't. What's that about? Or I'll look it up because we're getting ready to go. I'll have to look it up. Or just bring it up again next time we're together. White Wolf says, I recently got rid of my TV. Sticking with going free. Amen. Well done. Yeah, you're just going to get garbage out of that thing. Donning Armor is here. Wonderful to see you. You notice what we're going to see other thought leaders, content creators, organizational leaders. They don't like to talk about that reality. Even if they know, and probably a lot of these deep thinkers, they don't even know that the reason why they have massive audiences is because a bunch of midwits see them as intelligent. A bunch of midwits see them as intelligent. And like I said, what are they, like 105 IQ? Or are they 100 IQ and they just know the things, they've studied the things that midwits think intelligent people know? I mean, think about this for fuck's sake. We're not going to be able to survive it. We are not going to be able to survive it. If we don't find a way out of that, we're not going to be. So the bottom line is wealthy white people are going to have to figure this out or be forced to figure it out, by their handlers or whatever. And then they're going to have to come forward with their money to put in people's faces Andrew Jacksons. If they don't put in people's faces Andrew Jacksons, there is no way in hell they're going to be selecting all of these people who are very midwit and mid-couraged. Popcorn Power says, sound is wonky. Thank you for jumping in there with that. I'll have to keep Artificer as well. I'll have to keep a sharper eye. That's you all were right. I was wrong there. I need to keep a sharper eye. And thank you all. Carlisle looks like she reached out to tell me as well. Thank you. And who was that on? Did I say your name? I'll call you Michael. Thank you very much to Michael for reaching out. Popcorn Power saying sound is good now. Thank you for that. Kate saying it was very profound even when the audio was a little off. Well, thank you. Sin Pride, hello to you. Good to see you. Kate says, brilliant take. Thank you very much. White Wolf, I have been slowly introducing the lexicon to my family. It'll take time. Well, good work, brother. Thank you for that. It'll take time, but it'll work, right? Even with the most like intransigent bunch, it's going to work. Whereas if you went out there and you say, you know, let me tell you this giant event in history that didn't happen, you know, try that with the family. Vexed is here. Charles is here. All right. And we have another financial gift. Caleb is here. We have another financial gift. $5 more from No White Guilt Clips. God bless you, brother. People are intimidated, he writes, by your brains and character. You know, that's actually true. I'm just going to go ahead and own it. That is true. I've heard it again and again. There are people who say, I'm behind you. I'm going to support you. I want to do this work because I love your character. I love that you're not perfect, but you're always trying to do right. You're always trying to do good. I love it that you demonstrate actual intelligence. And you know what that tells me when I see these people who are talking like this with those sorts of constructions, not the outcome of, oh, I like you, but the constructions of their thoughts, it demonstrates their intelligence to me. And so I know that these folks have, on average, better character, even if they had flaws in their back, even big flaws. Everyone does. And I know that they're brighter than average because of the way they put their thoughts together. And you're absolutely right. I mean, can you imagine swarms of these people showing up of folks showing up to listen to TJump, thinking he's so ever intelligent. All right. We just went past blank here, just went past the top of the hour. And I think we've gotten everybody. Let me just check Odyssey one more time. Okay, good. It's blank. Didn't miss anybody. Well, it was wonderful once again to be with you all. It's been a lovely day. It's in the upper 80s here in Northern Virginia, outside Washington, D.C., and looking to a warm and sultry night outside Mordor on the Potomac. But I'll be back soon, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. Keep an eye out. Keep doing the Lord's work for white well-being, and roll out.